Okay, today's Saturday. And we're on 3-2-10. Om Ganatimirandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshurin Militam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Sthapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupakada Mahyam Tadhati Shapadantikam Devasya Mayaya Sprishta Ye Chanyad Asadashrataha Brahmyate Dhir Natad Vakyar Atmanyuptat Mano Haro. Under no circumstances can the words of persons bewildered by the illusory energy of the Lord deviate the intelligence of those who are completely surrendered souls. Just because you're bewildered doesn't mean I have to be bewildered. That's essentially what's being said here. Hare Krishna. By the influence of the Lord's external energy, they're bewildered. But the devotees are not bewildered. Purport. The Lord Sri Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, according to all the Vedas, all the evidences of the Vedas. He is accepted by all acharyas, including Sripad Shankaracharya. But when he was present in the world, different classes of men accepted him differently, and therefore their calculations of the Lord were also different. Generally, persons who had faith in the revealed scriptures accepted the Lord as he is, and all of them merged into great bereavement when the Lord disappeared from the world. In the first canto, we have already discussed the lamentation of Arjuna and Yudhisthira, to whom the disappearance of Lord Krishna was almost intolerable up to the end of their lives. The Yadavas were only partially cognizant of the Lord, but they are also glorious because they had the opportunity to associate with the Lord, who acted as the head of their family, and they also rendered the Lord intimate service. The Yadavas and other devotees of the Lord are different from those who wrongly calculated him to be an ordinary human personality. Such persons are certainly bewildered by the illusory energy. They are hellish and are envious of the Supreme Lord. The illusory energy acts very powerfully on them because in spite of their elevated mundane education, such persons are faithless and infected by the mentality of atheism. They are always very eager to establish that Lord Krishna was an ordinary man killed by a hunter due to his many impious acts in plotting to kill the sons of Dhritarashtra and Jarasandha, the demonic kings of the earth. Such persons have no faith in the statement of Bhagavad Gita that the Lord is unaffected by the reactions of work. Namam karmani limpanti. According to the atheistic point of view, Lord Krishna's family, the Yadu dynasty, was vanquished due to being cursed by the Brahmins for the sins committed by Krishna in killing the sons of Dhritarashtra, etc. So this is the Maya Pratijnana. Those who think they know something, but whose knowledge has been stolen by the illusory energy of the Lord. Because they're miscreants, duskritana mudha, they don't surrender to Krishna. Namam prapadyante. and therefore Maya Pratyajnana. So these are the educators of the world, the leaders of understanding. They're indicated here to be fools. All these blasphemies do not touch the heart of the devotees of the Lord, because they know perfectly well what is what. Their intelligence regarding the Lord is never disturbed. But those who are disturbed by the statements of the Asuras are also condemned. That is what Uddhava meant in this verse. So the Asuras have all these ideas, and the stalwart devotees should not be bewildered by reading, oh, it says here that Krishna is really just a demigod who was later glorified and became God. Oh, this professor says that there are 3 Krishnas. Oh, this professor, Professor Rascal, Professor Fool, and Professor Buddha may have their own theories, but the devotees are not bewildered. They let the professors remain bewildered on their own. Any questions? Yes.
This happened with other religions as well.
Mm-hmm.
Does it happen with other religions, like demons will deride like Jesus or other great?
Sure.
So, like they say, oh, Jesus didn't exist. It's like a very common thing.
Yeah, the same things.
Yeah.
Basically, why do you want to follow this God-conscious rubbish?
Yeah.
Be like us, dedicated to the gratification of your senses, and don't follow these crazy people who are considered saints or incarnations of God, who are teaching you to become God-conscious. No. Be rational. Be rational. And sometimes they pride themselves on being skeptics, but they're skeptical of everything except themselves and other skeptics. That's their position. They'll be entirely skeptical about any claim concerning divinity, and they'll be not at all skeptical about claims that life arises from matter, that consciousness is just a product of material forces. That they won't be skeptical about. But they pride themselves on being fiercely independent thinkers, skeptical of any wild claims. But they're really they have their own metaphysical bias. That's really what it is. They claim that they're science, that they're on the side of science, and they're against pseudoscience. But really, they're on the side of their own metaphysical biases. If anything scientific works against their bias, no, it's pseudoscience. And if anything works in favor of their bias, it's the truth. This is their situation. The claim that consciousness comes from matter is not really a scientific claim, it's a metaphysical claim. No one has demonstrated that life comes from matter, but it suits their reductionistic agenda, in which everything comes from simple material forces without the need of any intelligent direction. Mm-hmm. Okay.
When we preach to students,
Mm-hmm.
when we preach to students, those who are new, so they have not yet developed sufficient faith on us, so they will not fall in the category of this completely surrendered souls. So when they visit internet, they see so many wrong things about ISKCON, and their faith is bewildered. This is not the case with the boys who already spent 1 year, 2 years with us, but with the case, especially with the case for those who are new, because they have the habit of searching the things in the internet. So till now, we don't have any practical solution to avoid this problem.
certainly can't avoid people searching the internet. Of course, people who search the internet, at least in America, there's education given in primary school where the students are taught to use the internet. There's education regarding the reliability of what you search. Because there's a very entertaining cartoon. It showed two dogs sitting behind, or maybe it's just one dog, a dog sitting behind a monitor. And he says, the great thing about the internet is that on the internet, no one knows you're a dog. So you can be any fool and post any rubbish on the internet, and just because it's on the internet, now it has some sort of credibility, it has to be taken seriously. This is going on. And so the education is given for primary school students. Well, wait a second, check out your site. Who's behind it? Who's the sponsor? Who are the authors? How do you know that this site is credible? Does it have an axe to grind? Is it biased in some way? So they're taught that way. So one has to be discriminating in using the internet, and that point could be made that there'll be so many people, oh, ISKCON did this to me, ISKCON did that to me, ISKCON's off the wall this way. Anything good, anything good, someone will have something bad to say about it. I mean, Google Prime Minister Modi.
Yeah, bad and good both.
The people who say he's the greatest thing since rice, dal, and chapatis, and there'll be people who'll say he's the worst thing since Attila the Hun. So that's the nature of the internet. Anyone can say anything. But we have to see the thing for ourselves and consider. Is that okay? Make your own decisions. Don't rely on the internet. Or Wikipedia, by the way, which is really the not reliable. It's good for a first glance. You look there and you may get some things, but especially on anything metaphysical, anything religious, anything with some sort of spiritual bent to it, there's very low reliability factor. Yes, you had a question.
So I have two questions. First is what is the meaning of what is the meaning of describing any person as hellish?
Hellish, not a key, sir. What is the meaning? What do you suppose the meaning is?
They are on the way to hell. Is that so?
Yeah, if you go to hell, you'll find people with mentalities like theirs. Yeah, you can. Of course, we could always look up hellish and see what it says. Not that that will necessarily do much for us, but Narakisa, people who think that the deities are made of stone, that the guru is an ordinary person, that the Vaishnava is a member of a particular jati. He's Naraki, hellish. This definition is not particularly helpful. Hellish means causing pain, discomfort, or distress. But I don't think that's what Prabhupada means here. He means that They have a mentality fit for a resident of hell, which they may become. Here's Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, those who are bewildered by such words deserve hell. Okay. Yes.
So it may not be pertinent, so if it is not, please feel not to answer. When you are publishing purports like these, which are particularly straightforward, may offend some people, did you receive any, feedbacks which you would like to mention? How you call out, how you replied them? The people who take a objection and send it to BVT. How do you plan?
I didn't really get a lot of feedback. The editor doesn't get mail from the readers. Sometimes when I wrote things that were heavy, I got feedback. I wrote an article on, what was it? There were some riots in Los Angeles, California. And I wrote an article about how Los Angeles was a condemned and miserable place. And with people you don't want to see and things you don't want to have anything to do with. It's just a rotten, miserable material place, like every place else in the material world. In BTG, yeah. And I said, in fact, the whole world is so, it's such a place of rascaldom that Anantadev, who ultimately destroys the universe, thinks about destroying it sooner. So when I wrote that, and people got real angry. Some people got real angry. How can you say that about Los Angeles? And other people criticized that you're making this stuff up about Anantadev. That's not really very appropriate. So that in the next issue, I quoted the verse. Srimad Bhagvatam. It says that Lord Anantadev becomes so angry at the conditioned souls for not surrendering to Krishna that he'd rather destroy the world sooner than later. Yeah, it's in Bhagavatam. I didn't make it up. Pradarshya tapta tapasam avitripta drisham ranam. Yeah. Adayantar adadyastu swabimbam lokalochanam. Lord Sri Krishna, who manifested his eternal form before the vision of all on the earth, performed his disappearance by removing his form from the sight of those who are unable to see him as he is, due to not executing required penance. Purport. In this verse, the word avitripta drisham is most significant. The conditioned souls in the material world are all trying to satisfy their senses in various ways, but they have failed to do so because it's impossible to be satisfied by such efforts. And Prabhupada gives the example of the fish on land. It cannot be made happy by any amount of offered pleasure. The spirit soul can be happy only in the association of the Supreme Living Being, the personality of Godhead, and nowhere else. The Lord, by his unlimited causeless mercy, has innumerable Vaikuntha planets in the Brahmajyoti sphere of the spiritual world. And in that transcendental world, there is an unlimited arrangement for the unlimited pleasure of the living entities. The Lord himself comes to display his transcendental pastimes, typically represented at Vrindavan, Mathura, and Dwarka. He appears just to attract the conditioned souls back to Godhead, back to the eternal world. But for want of sufficient piety, the onlookers are not attracted by such pastimes of the Lord. In the Bhagavad Gita it is said that only those who have completely surpassed the way of sinful reaction can engage themselves in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. So that's the first thing. Yesham tvantakatam papam jananam punyakarmanam. Te dvantvamoha nirmukta. Bhajante mam drita vrata. To come to Krishna consciousness, actually one has to come to the end of sinful activities. Antakatam papam. Therefore, we require no intoxicants, no gambling, no meat eating, no illicit sex. Because as long as one is addicted to these things, one can't understand Krishna. Jananam punyakarmanam. The entire Vedic way of ritualistic performances is to put every conditioned soul on the path of piety. By strict adherence to the prescribed principles for all orders of social life, one can attain the qualities of truthfulness, control of the mind, control of the senses, forbearance, etc., and can be elevated to the plane of rendering pure devotional service to the Lord. Only by such a transcendental vision are one's material hankerings fully satisfied. So the varnashram system is for that. One may say that it doesn't directly engage one in devotional service, but if one follows the system, one becomes pious. Prabhupada said that's the advantage of India, that people, of course, traditionally, have been inclined to pious activities. When there's a Kumbh Mela, so many people will come. If there's a Bhagvatam recital, it doesn't matter who's speaking, so many people will come. If there's a bhajan recording, so many copies will sell. Even I was in, I've forgotten the name of the town. It's the district town of Krishna district in Andhra Pradesh. I was there for some visa work. And so I was staying in a little hotel above the street. And who's the first person on the street in the morning? No. If they were the first, they wouldn't be beggars. No, they come later. They'd be rich men if they're. Chaiwala. He's the first person. He comes with his little cart, but what's the first thing he does when he opens his little cart? He does some puja. So even the chaiwala in India is trained to be pious. And, all right, you're not a king, you're not a Brahmin, but you do this. Or I went to purchase some medicine in Juhu, and because I was the first customer of the day, he took my paisa and put it by his deity. So that training is there to perform pious activities. Even so many things, so many prescribed duties, to be charitable, to be self-controlled, to be samadhamma, to accept austerity. These things are pious. People will go take bath in the Kumbh Mela in the freezingest part of the year, because they think it's pious. So in the Varnashram system, if one strictly follows, actually it said if one for 100 births strictly follows the duties of Varnashram Dharma, he becomes Brahma in his next life. So not many candidates who's going to follow strictly for 100 births. But the idea is there, that by following the principles of Varnashram, one is elevated. And so gradually he becomes free from sinful activities, he accumulates pious activities, then he can engage in the service of the Lord. And then his transcendental vision becomes fully satisfied. Anything? Okay.
Since I've been staying in Ujjain, I've met a few devotees, and they say that because of the caste system, they said that we should just do away with the, not necessarily the Varnashram system, but they were saying to do away with the caste system. But the impression I got was that they were saying to get rid of the Varnashram system because they see.
So what's their idea? Marxism?
Yeah.
There's a professor of some note in America these days who's noted that the tendency in the modern Western academy is to adopt a paradigm or a worldview of the oppressed and the oppressors, those who are kept up and those who are kept down. And he says, really, it's just a Marxist view in different terms. It's the same thing. How dare you think that anyone is superior to anyone else? How dare you? It's like maximum aparad. To think that someone is actually more fit than anyone else. How could you think that? You beast. It's really, so if you, heaven forbid that you express at an American university that straight people are better than gay people, or that men are in any way superior to women. It's like, that'll get you tossed out on your, some part of your anatomy, your ear or your butt or something. Everybody's supposed to be equal. And it's stupidity, really, because materially, it's interesting. It illustrates a desire for equality, which is ultimately grounded in the spiritual truth, but it tries to accomplish it on the material platform, where equality is impossible. In the Bhagavad Gita, Vidya vinaya sampanne brahmane gavihashtini shuni chaiva shapakecha pandita samadarshana. The learned Pandit sees everybody equally. The humble and gentle Brahmin, the cow, the dog eater, with equal vision. Because he sees them all as spirit souls. But he's not such a fool that he embraces the tiger. Not that everyone is so equal. Throw yourself under the feet of an elephant. So on the spiritual platform, there's complete equality. The equality of all beings. You know, America wants equality for all human beings. In most states, it's the same. Equality for human beings. If you're not a human being, we'll torture you, we'll do anything to you. First you have to be a human being, otherwise we just do with you as we like. But then among the human beings there has to be equality. And the equality is mythological. Because all human beings are not equal. The Soviet political experiment was based on the contention that there's really equality. And it failed miserably. And the Russian author Solzhenitsyn said that they say that it failed because it wasn't properly implemented. He says the opposite is true. It was exactly implemented according to Marxist principles, and it failed. You can't enforce equality. In the Soviet Union, someone was running the government, someone was teaching in the university, someone was sweeping the streets. You call it a caste system, call it whatever you want, but it's going to be there. It must be there. But the Vedic system organizes it. And you've got this envy, you know, that why should some people be better than other people? But that's just the way it is, that some people are more fit for, it's not a question of better. Krishna says everyone, by performing his prescribed duties, can attain perfection, by engaging in the service of the Lord. But you don't want to engage in the service of the Lord, you just want to be equal to everybody else. And you want absolute equality of some sort. And this professor observed, he said that in these liberal universities where they were all talking about the oppressed and the oppressed, he said they're not really nicer to the cleaning people. It's not that they're, you know, that they really, you know, it's all talk. It's all talk. Guna karma vibhagasha, just castes by birth should be set aside. But by qualification you must have that. And doctors, what are they but members of a caste system? Unless you're qualified, you can't be a doctor. You know? And if you claim to be a doctor, you know, every brick in the world would be thrown at you. You have to be qualified. Too bad such principles don't apply to politicians also. The world would be a better place. Anything else? Yes.
Sometimes observing this mess of a social system that we have.
Excuse me?
Observing this mess of a social system that we have.
The mess of?
A social system.
Yes.
Yes, that we have.
The Indian mess, the American mess, or the mess in general?
You see, it's the global mess. The global mess.
Yeah.
So sometimes it feels really futile. Sometimes it feels futile to even talk about Varnashram because it is just too difficult to establish.
It's not too difficult to establish. It practically establishes itself. You put 100 people in a room, someone's going to be the leader. There'll be 1 or 2 or 3 leaders. Doesn't matter what you do. You don't have to have a varnashram system or this social system or that social system. Some people are going to be the leaders. And they're going to go to other people for advice and say, what do you think? And then there's other people who are going to be, they're going to go to and say, hey, we need food. How do we get it? What do we need? We need food. How are we going to get it? Well, we can make some money and we can buy it. Okay, that would work. We could grow it. Okay, that might work. And then there's going to be other people, no one's going to ask them for advice. They're just going to say, hey, can you bring us this? Can you bring us that? Could you fix this? Could you fix that? It'll always be like that.
That's just one, is it? That's just one.
Yeah.
You have a varna and ashram?
Ashram, yeah. Ashram is becoming too difficult in Kali Yuga. Marriage, for example.
Total confusion.
Total confusion. Might as well just ditch marriage, that's Kali Yuga. We just, what is that? No. Just by saying we're married, that'll be it. Yeah. Marriage will just be by agreement. Okay, let's be married, like playing house. And that's already going on. In the Indian social system, marriage means the parents negotiate, and first they search, and then they negotiate, and then they make all these big arrangements, and then all the relatives are invited, and everyone's blessings are sought, and rituals are performed, and the deal is cemented. That's marriage. Charity is given. But in Kali Yuga, marriage means, hey, why don't we just move in together? Yeah, I was thinking that too. And then they kiss, and that's marriage. Daivi Varnashram.
Varna establishes itself.
Not exactly establishes itself. It establishes itself, but then you have to. It's like old age establishes itself. You can say what you want. Old age is going to establish itself. Now we're talking ashram. It's going to establish itself. Now you can do something about it or not. You can go along with it, or you can refuse to admit it and try to push on like you're a teenager. But if you're intelligent, you'll see, well, hey, I'm in the 3rd section of my life or the 4th section of my life. How do I wind this up to make a success of the project? It's not a question of somebody's going to come along and artificially make some sort of a system. It's there. Biology. You start off like a kid. Are you so smart as a kid? Are you conversant with proper behavior and proper understanding as a kid? No, you need education. It's not a very difficult thing to understand. Then after you're educated, you're not going to stay in education for your entire life, except for a few souls who make education their profession. And the next thing is, well, what do I do? Well, I earn a living, I have a family, a householder life. And of course, in Kali Yuga, that's it. Well, no, that's not it. In Kali Yuga, you have householder life, then you break it up and you have householder life again. And then when that fails, again you do it. Puna charvata charvananam, chewing the chewed again and again. Chewing what you've already chewed and chewing what somebody else. You pick up your own wife and chew her for a while, then you pick up somebody else's wife and chew her for a while. This morning I was looking over the railing, there was a dog across the street who had some dead something or other, and he's chewing. Tearing at it and chewing and tearing at it and chewing. And there was another dog, maybe 4 or 5 feet away. He's just sitting there watching. So then, after quite some time, the dog was happy with his business, He got up and happily walked away. And the second dog looked around a little bit, waited to make sure, a decent interval, and then he went after the dead thing and started chewing what was left. So that's married life in Kali Yuga. You chew it, you chew it, you chew it, then you leave it, and someone else comes and chews it. So it's not just that they don't know what renunciation is, that they have education and then marriage and then they stick to married life to the end. That's degradation too. Prabhupada says in the first canto that to stick to married life till one's last days is the grossest form of degradation. And he puts it in italic. But no, it gets worse in Kali Yuga, not to contradict Prabhupada, but people are no longer content with that form of degradation. They don't want to stay in household life with the same husband or wife. Oh my goodness, no. So they come together, they break up, they come together, they break up, they recombine in different formations. And then they complain about, the Indian caste system and arranged marriages and how terrible this all is. I saw there was a Council on Foreign Relations, which is actually a small but powerful political and social organization, has a campaign, launched a campaign and published works by learned professors railing against child marriage. How terrible child marriage is. And they had some statistic that this number of girls under the age of 16 are, forced to are married. Okay, but one might be persuaded that they have a parochial view of things. That America certainly doesn't have that problem where we have 15 and 16-year-old girls who are getting married. No. They have sex. By the time she's 16, the girl may no longer be able to count how many men she's had sex with. But she doesn't have to get married. How much better that is. She can have sex like a dog and be used by so many men. But she keeps her dignity because no one forces her to get married. Of course, it's not a question of force, but it's actually a benevolent arrangement by the family that when the girl attains puberty, naturally she's interested in getting married. I mean, why do girls all play with dolls? So many, maybe not every, but most girls. They play with dolls, because they're naturally inclined. Here in India especially, you see, if a girl has a younger brother or sister, she's always taking care of the younger brother or sister. It's just natural. When I go on the airplane, not when I go, on some flight I was on, there was a little baby, and all the female flight attendants were playing with the little baby. The men couldn't care less. They had no interest whatsoever in this little baby. But the female flight attendants were all playing with the baby and, goo-gooing with the baby and all of that. Because they're naturally inclined toward motherhood.
Recently?
Yeah, within the last couple of years. Yeah, these things don't change, in 6 months or a year. This is hardwired in biology. It's not a question of social system or this or that. Okay, they're all flight attendants, they're all, aviation professionals. But put a baby there and they'll all go, ooh. It's natural. So it's natural that a girl wants to be married and have a husband and children and so on. So the parents would be duty bound, would be responsible to see that the girl is happily married, that she gets a suitable boy, a qualified boy to take care of her, to protect her. That was the Vedic system. And in the West, the system is that heaven forbid she should get married. But if she wants to have sex freely, well, that's her choice. And so it's great for the men. They get to exploit the women like anything. You know, I mean, you're not some sort of a, I mean, are you a Christian or something? I mean, what is it? I mean, what's the problem? You know, what's the problem? Are you a prude? You know, or what's the problem here? You know, why are you not available for me to have sex with? You know, give your reasonable explanation, please. And so they get exploited. And then it's very hard for them to be married happily. Married, yeah, maybe, but not happily. How degraded it's become. There's one dating site, now this is of course all digitized and interneted. One dating site, and they give, maybe the site didn't give the information, but people who are the gurus for the site that give the information, that when you know, meet a boy through the dating site, don't have sex with him on the first night. Because then he'll think that you're not suitable for marriage. He'll think you're cheap. So don't have sex with him on the first time you meet. Because then, you know, marriage will be like, yeah, he'll have fun, but he won't consider you suitable for marriage. You should at least wait to the third or fourth time that you meet. Then you're high-class goods, and maybe he'll consider marrying you. Now this is Kali Yuga. Now these things, the Varnashram system is natural, but it's not spontaneous. Not that everything automatically falls into place. You know, children automatically decide to go to school, girls automatically get happily married, people automatically retire, people automatically get the occupation that's appropriate for them. It needs to be organized. And when it's properly organized, then everything works. Just like even like a normal person, he'll get up early in the morning, he'll take his breakfast, he'll take his lunch sometime in the middle of the day, evening he'll take his dinner, he'll take rest within the next couple of hours. I mean, it's a very natural thing to do, but it doesn't happen automatically, no matter what. You know, in big cities, they have such a crazy way of life. They're working till 10 o'clock at night, 11 o'clock at night. University students are working till 2 o'clock in the morning, and then getting up at, I was told this at Oxford University, where I visit sometimes. The students stay up till like 2 in the morning and get up in time for their first class, which might be like 11 o'clock in the morning. So it's not that good sense automatically enforces itself. But if one is trained in good sense, then it's natural. Just like taking bath every day, 2 times a day, 3 times a day. It's very natural and sensible, but it doesn't automatically happen. But once you do it, you see this is very natural, this is very sensible.
The animals, they naturally, go to sleep.
Yeah, animals live more naturally than human beings.
Like when it's dark, they go to sleep,
Yeah.
and then they get up and they, they eat at a certain time. Everything's regulated, eating, mating, sleeping, everything.
Yeah, the animals are more regulated than the human beings because they have no choice. Therefore, the animals automatically make advancement. No, they do. Automatically promoted one species to the next. You never see a tiger stealing oranges. Prabhupada would say you never see the bird, try to walk away with the whole bag of rice. It takes, as much as it needs and goes away. But the human beings, he wants the whole bag. He wants, everything according to his own. Everything could be, well, even if I don't need this, maybe I need it in the future. If I don't need it, I could sell it. Everything's in terms of his own profit, his own. And it doesn't matter whose it is. Same thing. Okay, there's a woman, okay, she's married, but okay, I'm interested. There's no sense of duty, responsibility. Everything's according to my sense gratification. Kamo pabhoga parama etavariti nishrita. This is the demonic mentality. And the divine quality is that everything's regulated, everything's according to principles. So the varnashram system is there so that people will be pious, people will do the suitable things, and they'll make progress. They'll ultimately come to devotional service. If you live against the laws of nature, if you're a womanizer, a thief, a drunkard, how are you going to understand God? And therefore you get these people who are demonic, and they believe in all of these things: gambling, woman hunting, meat eating. And are we surprised that they don't believe in God, or that they're against the idea of God?
So we usually see this regarding animal behaving always naturally. In regard to this point, sometimes you see usually in India that sometimes the cattle, they attack the farm, overgraze the farm. Sometimes elephants attack the farm. So isn't it encroaching upon isn't it natural?
The elephants do what?
They attack farms.
They attack farms.
And scatter sometimes.
Because you've taken everything. You've taken their food. You cut down the forests, and then you accuse the elephants of invading your farm. It's been argued that way, that these Adivasis and so on, who were, supposedly Naxalites and who were attacking whatever, that the argument has been made that they're just the local people. And you've tried to displace them, you've taken away their land, you've taken away everything they have. And then when they try to do something, you accuse them of being Naxalites. But what choice did you give them? I don't know if that's a true argument. I haven't examined the matter closely. But it's certainly a plausible argument. And it's certainly, in broad terms, in different countries, true that they deprive people of their natural share of what God has given. And then when they act desperately, you accuse them of being some sort of disturbance to the society, and you try to shoot them or put them in jail or whatever it is.
You're talking about the natives of the country? Or?
Yeah, the local people.
The local people.
Yeah. That's the. That's what I'm talking about. I don't mean invaders.
Yeah.
But the local people, you in various ways exploit them and take away their natural share, and then you're surprised when they rebel or they act in some antisocial manner. Of course, things are more complicated than that because there are local people who are just by nature criminal. They're by nature thieves, they're by nature violent, they're by nature so many things, or by their association they've taken to these things. So it's not just black and white. But particularly here in India, this argument has been made that for the benefit of multinational corporations that want the land and its local resources, the Indian government has cooperated in driving away the local people who are an obstacle to progress. I can't speak to that argument as to the truth of it. You're in a better position to know than I am. But it's the sort of thing that can go on. And certainly it's true that the local populations in countries all over the world are exploited for the sake of those who are controlling the government, the economy, the government and the economy. The people are there to be used too often. Well, are we meeting the same time tomorrow or a different time? Tomorrow being Sunday. Same time. All right. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Same.